Welcome, everybody. I'm Kirby Goggins. I'm the strength trainer here at KPI Fit and in partnership with TY HealthSpan. So let's get into it. Today, our topic is cardio done right, and specifically how to use it so it actually helps whether you're chasing a goal related to sport or if you're just trying to get in shape for general health and longevity. I say cardio has a reputation problem amongst the weightlifters and then the runners, because the weightlifters think that it'll eat away at their muscle gains, and the runners think that weightlifting is going to make them bulky and slow. And both of them are true, but like most things, the truth kind of lies in the middle. And we've only got about 20 minutes, so we're going to speak pretty generally about things. And if you have specific questions as it pertains to your sport or your goals, let me know and we can have a conversation about that. Today, what we're going to cover is one, why cardio is a non-negotiable. Two, can cardio actually hurt your progress? Three, the one thing that people miss when it comes to timing with their cardio. And four, what to do with your goal, whether it's fat loss, muscle gain, endurance, or longevity. All right. So cardio isn't good or bad. It's a dose. And getting the prescription right is the only thing that matters. Like I said before, lifters think it eats muscle, runners think lifting makes them slow. Athletes need both strong cardiovascular systems as well as strong muscles. And the truth is, everyone needs both. So everyone's an athlete. It's just where do you fall on the intensity spectrum? Why this is so important, and I want to emphasize this more than everything else, your cardiorespiratory fitness is and your VO2 max specifically is the highest predictor of your mortality risk. Even if you were to be unfit and not smoke a cigarette ever, you can still be more unhealthy than a frequent smoker. So I want to reiterate that your cardio fitness is non-negotiable. So specifically, if I were to be speaking to an athlete that was primarily focused on weightlifting and getting stronger and avoiding cardio, I would say that cardio isn't taking away from your ability to recover. Building that engine actually helps you recover faster so that you can recover faster either between sets or even between like workout days. So if you're feeling like you can only lift every 2 days, you might benefit from building up your aerobic capacity so that your muscles are able to like even 24 hours or maybe 12 hours. Cardio doesn't steal your recovery, it buys you more of it. This is actually backwards from what most people in a weight room would believe. The thinking goes, I have a limited recovery budget, and cardio spends some of that recovery budget. So cardio is actually costing me gains. That's not how the engine works. A bigger aerobic base means you clear fatigue faster between your sets. It means you clear fatigue faster between sessions, which means you can handle more hard sets more often and actually absorb them. And more quality volume that you recover from is the thing that's going to drive your growth. So cardio is actually going to feed your lifting gains. If you're skipping cardio to protect your gains, you're not actually protecting your gains. You're capping them. And what that would look like for lifters, most of your cardio should actually feel easier than you think. And that's where this magical zone 2 that we keep talking about comes in. Zone 2 is it's supposed to be easy and a conversational pace, and you could be talking to me the whole time, complete sentences. That's the cardio that feels like you're not really doing anything, but it's building the engine and your capacity. And that actually doesn't interfere with your lifting. It's easy to do, and you don't really need to feel like you're at the fully recovered and primed. Can always go for a walk. After the heavy left leg days, like you can always put in a few thousand steps. And the threshold where we're talking about like zone 3 and 4, comfortably hard, you can still talk, but short sentences. And VO2 max work is where you're going all out, full tilt. If you have done a VO2 max test with us, you'll be very familiar with what that feels like. We really push you to the limit, and the only thing that's running through your head is get me off of this treadmill. Like I want the mask off, I can't breathe. And it's important to push yourself to that level every so often, but the bulk of your cardio should not be feeling like that. We should be in that zone 2, zone 3 area for the majority of your cardio work. And this is important to reiterate because people, if they don't feel like they're doing something, if they don't feel like they're doing their cardio, if they aren't breaking a sweat and out of breath. People do their easy days too hard, and they do their hard days too easy because they're already tired from the easy days. So everything kind of lands in this useless middle ground that's very mediocre. It's not easy enough to build the base, and then it's not hard enough to move the ceiling. So building the base is what people miss. It's not being lazy, that's the dose. All right. And the main point of my attention grabbing title is, can cardio work against you? And the answer is yes, but it's not really the reason you think it would be. An interference effect where your aerobic strength can blunt your strength and muscle gains because you're going into the gym and you're trying to warm up, and you'll go straight to the treadmill and run 30 minutes and then try to spend 30 more minutes lifting after that. Your lifts are going to be less intense because you're not able to output the same amount of force. And lifting should be about pushing your outputs higher for your strength gains. And if you're already tired from the running, your lifts are not just going to be as heavy. So for most people, flipping them and doing a light dynamic warm up and then putting the bulk of their workout into the lifting and then adding the cardio in at the end. But it really depends on what you're training for. We're starting to see more and more sports that are emerging that are blending two worlds of cardio athletes and strength athletes. So it really depends where you would identify yourself in terms of your goals, or if you're just generally looking for weight loss too. I would say the same would apply. The lifting should be the bulk. You need to gain muscle, where we would determine that through DEXA. If you increase your burn rate so that you can burn calories more efficiently, even on your off days. That's where I would put your effort into, and then adding in the cardio towards the end. Very low, like intensity, zone 2 cardio, like incline treadmill at like 3 speed for 15, 20 minutes. So if I had an hour to work out, I would do the 30, 45 minutes of lifting and then the 15 to 20 minutes cardio at the end. As far as like how much interference is a factor, nobody's ever lost their bench press PR to a 20-minute walk. So it's all about like running a 5K and then trying to bench your PR. It's just not conducive to pushing that intensity. And you should be tracking your lifting volume, like how many pounds per week are you lifting, just like you're tracking your cardio volume in terms of like mileage. Like runners are very good about tracking, like I'm running 50 miles this week in preparation for my marathon, 100 miles this week. Just finding out where you're at in your training and like bumping up the mileage is how they refer to it as. In weightlifting, you probably track your volume just to make sure you don't have these spikes in volume that would be indicative of possible injury risk. And that's why it's important to have a budget for your lifts as well as cardio mileage. Staying on budget and tracking that. And like I said, lift first, condition second. Put your zone 2 after lift, not before it. And yeah, here's the part nobody says out loud. Most people aren't lifting hard enough to begin with. So pre-fatiguing yourself takes a stimulus that was already too weak and makes it weaker. If it's in the same session, the same minutes, better order. So it's the same amount of time that you would have already been there. We're just optimizing it. And cardio isn't just running. Say running because I think of cardio, I think of running because it's just the easiest thing. You don't need any equipment. It's cheap. You can always just go for a walk. But you can change cardio based on your goals or what works for you. People may avoid running because it's high impact and there's a lot of like eccentric loading. It can be more damaging on your knees. And that's why you can swap to either cycling, rowing, the ski erg, or the incline walk that I talked about earlier, because it's just lower impact. And they buy you the same amount of zone 2 engine building for a fraction of damage. So just the modality that matches your goal, not the one that everybody else around you is doing. And there is no one size fits all, like I said before. It's the outcome you're chasing, and you kind of put yourself into a different camp. If you're trying to build muscle, you train like this. If you're focused on fat loss, train like this. And if you're trying to be a hybrid athlete, training in the format that fits your sport. Like, what does cardio look like in basketball? What does it look like in soccer? Two different things because the basketball court's smaller than the soccer field. That's kind of, you look at the gameplay and kind of base cardio off of what you would see in the game. And then also just training for general longevity. Like, what does your VO2 need to be at to be, you know, the top of your class or top of your age group? And we can go into the specifics of if I was trying to build muscle, I would do the minimum effective dose, low impact, short, and keep it away from your heavy days or your heavy lifting days. Just enough to stay healthy and recover well, but not any more than that, because past that, you are stealing recovery from the weight intensity. And losing fat, you're not going to outwork a bad diet. So that's where we create the gap through your eating habits. And then cardio is just that extra step that you take if you want to accelerate towards your goals and getting to where you want to be, fat loss wise and body composition wise. Because if you think about it, like a 45-minute workout can, burn only 200, 250 calories. And that's pretty intense. And you can also just eat a single donut, and that can be 200 calories. And so I don't know about you, but I don't have enough time in the day. I'd rather outpace my donuts with just the exercise. So I have to make the donuts few and far between versus running for 4 hours a day to try to keep on pace with that. And so for the sports, you just look at the sport for like HYROX and whatnot. You're running 8 kilometers and you're also intermingling with the heavy weightlifting. if you look at the first stations in HYROX, you're running a kilometer, doing a 1 kilometer ski erg, running another kilometer. So that's 3K of just cardio before you even get to a strength station, which is the sled push. And so if you fry yourself on the first 3 kilometers, you're not going to have the strength to push the sled. And so that's why we see a lot of people, like the race is kind of won and lost in the sled push, but the run after the sled push is a kind of a decider, because if you are able to have some capacity left in your legs after that run, whoever wins that run is typically in the best position, able to hold their position throughout the rest of the race. So that's kind of like the make or break checkpoint. So you should train around that and like train running 3K, being fatigued, and then lifting while you're fatigued. I know that goes against what I was saying earlier, but you just train to fit your sport. And generally, the baseline for everybody, you should be doing 150 minutes of easy cardio plus a little bit of sprint work for your VO2 max. And that's the floor that everybody should be doing. And that probably looks more like 7,000 steps a day in a couple of zone 2 sessions. And why I say 7,000, 10,000 is just a round, nice number that chosen during an older study. I think it's good to chase 10K because more than 7 and people usually fall short of things. But I would say the 10 to 12K is that fat loss zone. And if you really want to be serious about losing weight, you should push yourself to do 12 to 15. And one easy way to kind of keep that on your schedule is doing 10 to 15-minute walks after your meals to kind of like promote digestion and keeping your metabolism running smoothly. And that's the biggest thing with cardio and whatnot, is being consistent. So kind of tying it to something you're already doing. You're always going to eat. So eating dinner, if you just make doing your 10 to 15-minute walk as automatic as you eating dinner every day and making that a non-negotiable, that's how you build habits and keep yourself being consistent. And that's where you're going to see the gains, because you're not going to have these, like, if you have a cheat meal, you're going to go on your walk. You need to have something that's consistent. Otherwise, you're not going to see your results. So this just reiterates the prescriptions, of the general prescriptions for fat loss, muscle gain, speed, power, HYROX hybrid, and just general health. But again, every number that we went over is personal. Your zone 2 heart rate, your threshold, your VO2 max, and your lactate threshold is individual to you. And so in order to get those numbers, we have to do testing, and that's why we do that here at TY HealthSpan, because we want. So VO2 max and lactate threshold testing set your actual zones, which means your cardio gets prescribed to your goal instead of copied off of somebody else's program. The right dose, the right timing, and the right kind of cardio. And we run that type of testing. We run that type of testing here at TY HealthSpan. If you want your baseline, come find out. If you want your baseline, all right. And that's why I run that type of testing here at TY HealthSpan. If you want to find your baseline, come find out and book us an assessment at tyhealthspan.com. So, all right, I'm going to open it up to questions. Anybody want to know?
Okay, Kirby,
Yeah.
we got one. Can you give a real life example of a training program and frequency?
As it relates to, like, who am I
How,
talking
how,
to in terms of
how about for weight loss?
for weight loss, the habit building? I would say the 15-minute post meal walks. I would build from there, and that's the consistent baseline, and that gets you maybe your 45 minutes of walking. And then if I were to add in like the gym training sessions of 3 to 4 days a week on incline treadmill, I do the 3 miles an hour, maybe even as slow as 2.5. And I would do like an incline of like 12% and do that for 15, 30 minutes, maybe 45 if you have the time. But that should kind of get you generally in that zone two for most people. And from there, it depends if they need to be gaining muscle as well. If you need to be gaining muscle, which is most people, I would do those 3 to 4 days a week of exercising for 60 to 90 minutes.
One of the questions has to do with sort of muscle versus fat, kind of to follow up on what you just said. You know, that if you're losing weight, it's, you know, it seems like it's counterproductive to gain muscle because muscle is heavier than fat, but so you may not actually lose any real weight.
I try to have the talk with people and kind of detach from the number on the scale and pay more attention to performance and realize that your healthiest, strongest self may actually be heavier than you think they should be.
Here's another question. I think most people are familiar with tracking apps for running and walking and stuff like that. What's a good app to keep up with that, the workout stuff that you were talking about, the lifting and the total load and all those kind of things?
Right now, they kind of specialize depending on what kind of training you're doing. Strava is very popular for the running, cycling community. They also add in your your zones there, so it'll track your zone two. Heavy is good for the weightlifting volume, and it'll show you your like how many pounds you're lifting every week and how that's trending. But the watches, like the Garmin watches and Apple watches, they have the Apple Health and Garmin apps. Those will also, similarly to Strava, tell you your zones and how much like you can set goals for the week and see how close you are to filling out those those thresholds.
Okay. What is one of the things on one of the slides was eccentric loading? Would you describe that?
Yes, eccentric loading. It was in relation to the knees and the running. So concentrically, if you're jumping like that propulsive power and strength, eccentrically would be like walking downstairs. That's why some people have pain only when they're walking downstairs in their knees, like that. That's that eccentric loading, the impact and absorbing. That's going to be something that you should train probably in a more stable, less repetitive position. And we can train like that here with like an eccentric training mode where we do a squat with 50 pounds on the concentric. So you're lifting up with 50 pounds and then it'll load another 50 pounds and you'll be loading down with 100 because your muscles can actually withstand more weight on the eccentric, like loading downwards, like on a that's why for like pull-ups, one of the best ways to train for somebody who's isn't able to do a pull-up is get up to the bar, chin to the bar, and then lower as controlled as you can. That's the eccentric. So they can actually slow down the lowering, but they're just unable to lift up with the concentric motion. And running is just very high impact on that. You're basically doing hundreds of thousand like mini squats, and that impact is pretty aggressive on your knees if you don't train up to it. So that's why you can't just get super motivated and then go and run a marathon. Like it's gonna really tear up your knees.
Okay, I think we're at after 7:30. Somebody put in the chat, thought one of the best lines of the whole thing so far was you're not going to outwork a bad diet.
Yeah, it's true.
And so that leads us into the teas for next week, which is we'll have our Paige Love will be doing the nutrition healthy habit session for everybody, and she's going to be talking about summer, how to eat better during the summer when you've got all kinds of things going on like vacations and whatnot. Well, thanks
All right.
Kirby a lot for a great session tonight. I know I learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure everybody else did. And we thank you.
All right. Thank you guys.